On August 15th, 2015, a small indie game by the name of Undertale was released, and hopefully, if I actually complete a video for once, today would be its 5th birthday. A project that creator Toby Fox came up with after making multiple hacks of the game EarthBound, notably the EarthBound Halloween hack. Starting a game is never easy. A lot of things are required, like other talented artists, as well as assets, hard drives, music studio equipment, and many other items. So, to help fund the game, Toby used Kickstarter and asked for $5,000. Legend has it that by the end of the deadline for crowdfunding the game, Toby Fox ended up receiving $51,000. With that, he started working, and after 2 years and 9 months of programming, animating, recording music, writing, testing, and perfecting over and over, the game was released and met with critical praise. People loved it, myself included. Although, I didn't really play the game at launch. In fact, I'm probably with the majority of people who have only heard of Undertale through Donkey, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, Vinesauce, Game Theory, Etika, or many other content creators. But even after all of these people playing it and giving it free publicity, I didn't care. I do regret not playing it for so long, and I only got around to playing it when I met one of the greatest friends I'd ever have. He changed my life for the better, and when he recommended it, I remember beating it one night at like 1 a.m. on the Switch, and I cried. And I'll say it, I cried over a video game, and I will continue to cry over a video game because it means something to me. Of course, over time I ended up giving it more meaning than I'm pretty sure was originally intended, but it still means something to me. And I will say, for an indie RPG where you have the choice to kill or save characters, while also giving the players some hilarious moments through either witty or just plain stupid humor, it has some really emotional points that tug at your heart. Of course, my experiences with the game are completely separate from the ones that you might have, and yours might be different from anyone else's. As an example, when I said the title Undertale, it probably made you have some sort of thought about the game, whether it be from the questionable fan art, people telling you that it's just a different game bro, the wonderful music, sans, or any of the other millions of things from the game and its community. You still somehow thought about it. It's had an impact on you or someone close to you in some way, and if you're able to remember it, then it did its job. However, deciding on whether it's a good or bad memory is something that you have to do on your own. Now, without further ado, I present Undertale. The game begins with the cutscene, a story that explains what happened and how we got to this point in time. 2 races ruled the world, humans and monsters. But then war was waged, and in a sort of plot twist from usual story beats, the humans end up winning the fight and trap the monsters underground. Years later, within the decade of the 2010s, a child finds their way up Mount Ebott, trips on some vines, and falls down, to then land on a bed of flowers. And then, title card. This cutscene isn't quite what it seems, which is why it sort of has an old filter over it, but it still applies to our character. We then encounter Flowey, a flower who teaches you the basic rule of life. It's kill or be killed. You are then saved by the one and only Torio, who takes you with her. She acts as a tutorial of the game, holding your hand around the underground, letting you know that there will be puzzles to solve, enemies that will attack, and teaches you that, contrary to what Flowey says, you do not have to fight when confronted by said enemy. I will get into this aspect of the game later when I get to the gameplay section of the essay, but this is what makes Undertale stand out from most RPGs. Of course, there are Fallout and many others where you have the choice to not kill, but in most cases, that choice doesn't affect the ending. Keep in mind, I do say most. There are some where it does, but a majority don't care who you kill. Undertale, however, likes to reward the player by giving some pretty humorous dialogue if choosing to act and talk with the opponent rather than just kill, or even flee the fight, as the ending of the game shows you what happened to every monster you encounter in the underground. And it's pretty satisfying to know that some of them now have successful careers and amazing lives because of your influence on them. In fact, The entirety of the ruins is set up how the game will play out, and how to deal with multiple situations that may occur during your playthrough of the game. You somehow make it through the evils and such within the ruins and reach her house. She sees you, and proceeds to take you in as her own child. While in her home, you can look around on the room set up with toys, a bed, a cabinet, and a desk, as if someone might have been living here before you. After a quick nap, you talk with Toriel about wanting to go back home. She runs off to the exit, where, in an effort to stop you from leaving, she fights you. You have no option to talk with her, so you may just want to attack, or possibly just keep sparing her, until she understands that you do not want to hurt another person or monster. After a hug, a goodbye, and an understanding that you may never come back here, she lets you through. One last stop with Flowey, letting you know that this is not his full plan, and that eventually everything will fall in place. You walk out into the area known as Snowden Forest. You walk forward, hopefully to find some sort of place where you can get help. As you reach a wooden bridge, you not only hear and see a twig snap, but a monster, covered by shadow, approaches you, and lets you know the proper way to greet a new face, by shaking their hand. You fall for the trick, and meet the most famous and infamous character in the whole game, Sans, the lazy, apathetic, and carefree skeleton who helps you throughout the beginning of the ruins, and later returns to judge every action you ever did during the game. He serves as a sort of introduction to the underground, where you might suspect evil monsters around every corner ready to kill you at a moment's notice. You meet Sans and his brother Papyrus. Along the way, you also meet several characters who teach you that blue attacks require no movement at all, and to stay perfectly still. This sort of blue attack will come in later with Papyrus after a series of failed attempts to capture you and fight you, where in that same fight, it shows that some enemies had the ability to change your heart icon to make attacks more difficult to dodge. After whooping his ass, he just agrees to become friends, and possibly go on a date with him. The date is pretty interesting. We get to see the genre of Undertale change from RPG to dating sim, to then point and click where you must find the most interesting thing on Papyrus, where, in the end, you both come to an understanding that it wasn't meant to be. Now, quick disclaimer, I won't go over every incident of the protagonist doing something such as petting a doggy night or teaching dogs that they can indeed pet each other. This is just meant to be a quickish explanation of the story, so not every detail will be talked about. Anyways, once the date is finished, you then set off to Waterfall. Throughout Waterfall, you are stalked and attacked by Undyne, a fish-human hybrid who vows to take on the challenge of fighting and capturing you so that she may take you to King Asgore. However, every time she tries to, there seems to be some sort of mishap with the monster kid. A monster that's a kid, who just so happens to be a mega fan of Undyne and wishes that the human she's after is captured and taken to King Asgore. Monster Kid follows you around, stepping in to help you whenever Undyne is about to beat you senseless. You manage to escape Undyne by falling down into some garbage dump, and after a walk, you get to the meat of Waterfall, where these mushroom-type things light a path. Puzzles are solved, hidden temp shops are found, dummies attack you, so you use their attacks against them until they give up. Ghosts lay on the ground and see the infinite cosmos in all of its crunchy 8-bit glory, and where snails race in a game called Thunder Snail. I have little to say about Waterfall, which is great. So after a little walk with Monster Kid, you end up saving him from falling to his death in front of Undyne, who then backs off when Monster Kid tells her off. You and Monster Kid split ways, and you near Hotland. Before you enter the area though, you must fight Undyne in a head-to-head attack, blocking her attacks with a magical shield, after which, you can keep fleeing the fight until you make it to the edge of Hotlands. Undyne, dying from dehydration, stops on a bridge and falls to the floor. You see a conveniently placed water fountain with cups and pour it on her. She gets up and walks away, never to be seen again for the rest of the game. You then walk forwards and enter in Hotland. As you enter into Hotlands, you see the laboratory, and after walking in, you notice you are being watched on this giant TV. You meet Alphys, the royal scientist who explains that after a bit of a mishap with a robot of hers named Mettaton then crashes in, and we experience one of the 5 encounters, each one different from the last. The first one happens to be the easiest, as it's a quiz show where Mettaton asks questions and you answer with the help of the one and only, Dr. Alphys. Mettaton lets you live, and you are left to go back to seeing King Asgore. After some puzzles that involve destroying blocks with yellow shooter things, some platforms that throw you in a certain direction, you end up on another one of Mettaton's games. This time, it's a cooking show where you must help Mettaton bake a cake. The most important part of any ingredient, when baking a cake, is the human soul. Mettaton pulls out a chainsaw and is so close to cutting you up, until you are once again saved by Alphys, who convinces Mettaton to make a vegan option cake, not requiring a human soul. He agrees and asks you to go retrieve it only a few feet away. However, it's rigged and the platform is sent flying up. You only have a couple of minutes to get to it. Actually, no, it's only a minute. So, you get equipped with a jetpack that Alphys put on your phone and fly towards the ingredient, dodging Mettaton's attack on your way up. You get it, and Mettaton lets you live anyways. You get back down, and after some talk with Alphys, you just keep walking. Across a lava-filled river is the core, the final stop for food and such before you meet with Asgore. After some more puzzles and meetups, you encounter Mettaton again with the news-type segment, where you defuse bombs before the 5-minute countdown runs out. You beat Mettaton again. He leaves, you keep walking. More puzzles and platforms, as well as a fight with the Muffet, a spider humanoid monster who, after a fight over money and almost being eaten by her pet, she lets you pass through to Mettaton's performance. He sings, then drops you into a puzzle that is reused from Papyrus at the beginning of the game, except this time, it works. Once again, at the last second, Alphys saves you from being incinerated and lets you walk into the core. You talk with Sans at a restaurant where he explains that a lady told him a promise that if a human ever came by into the underground, he was not to hurt them. He explains that if it were not for the promise he made, you would be dead where you stand, and plays it off as some joke. Classic Sans. You enter in the core and get attacked by some monsters, do more yellow shooty puzzles, and reach the end, where Mettaton tells you that Alphys set up everything to make it look like she was the hero, and that she won't save you now. She locked Alphys out. You then fight Mettaton and end up transforming him from his regular self to an EX version with legs, a body, and a head. You dance, pose, and boast your way through a fight until he overworks himself and ends up destroying his limbs. All that is left is his torso and head. As a sign that this will be his last broadcast ever, he takes callers. Multiple monsters call in and let him know that they will miss him a lot, and how he gave them determination. He then stops functioning as soon as Alphys comes in. She inspects him and only says that it's just the batteries, but tells you to keep on going. As you near the elevator, Alphys stops you. She tells you that she lied. She's a fraud, and that the only way to cross the barrier is to kill King Asgore. You step into the elevator and make your way to the end. You walk through the castle and make your way to the end. The song Undertale starts playing, and you see a home that looks just like the one Joriel had, just gray, lifeless. We find keys inside the house to make our way downstairs. 2 presents inside a room with 2 beds, one having a heart-shaped lockbox and the other having a worn dagger. While it's happening, you encounter monsters who rejoice that their time will soon come when Asgore takes your soul and lets monsters of the underground free, asking why you look so sad. You should be happy and cheerful as they are. They then tell you the story of the king's children, Azrael and another human. His son Azrael was killed by humans after taking a human child back to the village when the human died of sickness. The humans beat him blow after blow after blow. Beaten and hurt badly, he made his way back into the underground, where, on a pile of flowers, he died. Asgore, filled with rage, vowed that any human who falls down into their territory were to be killed and soul used to break the barrier between the underground and the surface. He managed to collect 6 human souls and needs 1 more, yours. You make your way to the judgment room, where Sans judges you. He states that EXP is execution points, and love stands for level of violence. The more EXP you gain, the easier it is to disassociate and hurt people, increasing your love. You, however, never gained any EXP or love throughout, and even though what lies ahead is the final boss, you know what the best option to do. The hopes and dreams of the underground lies within what happens during the fight. He lets you pass through, and you see Asgore tending to his flowers. He greets you, before turning around and being shocked. His face changes, he becomes sad, and knows what must happen next. You both enter the hall where the barrier lies. He explains that if there is any unfinished business, you're allowed to do it. You let him know that you're ready, and so the final fight begins. He destroys your mercy bar, and you must fight him until his health is low. After which, you show the king mercy. He says he is sorry and that he will take you in as his own and can be a family. That is, until Flowey takes the opportunity to kill the king, take the 6 human souls, and become God, crashing the game. You start up Undertale. Something seems different. The cutscene glitches out and says that the humans and monsters have disappeared without a trace. You see the latest save file is now named Flowey. Your level is now 9999, and your time, 99999. It's Flowey's world. Even the name of the application is Floweytale. He has taken over the game and destroys the save file, trapping you in his world. He explains that he will keep killing you over and over. Flowey then transforms into a giant Photoshop being, with each soul being used to fight the human. However, during the fight, souls rebel and start helping the human, giving help, and end up allowing Flowey to be defeated. He turns back into a flower, and you are allowed the choice to kill him or spare him. You spare him over and over, as he keeps saying that he will kill you and everyone you have ever loved. On the final spare, he flees the fight. You get a phone call. It's Sans, letting you know what has happened. Toriel became queen, and now treats any human who falls down as a friend. Papyrus lost his job as royal guard, and so just helps around. Undyne lost her house and blames the human for the disappearance of King Asgore, and Alphys hasn't been seen. The call ends. Flowey then appears, telling you that things don't have to be the way they are. There is a save right before the big fight, where you can go and talk with Undyne at her house. You then load the save, and make your way to Waterfall. You make your way to Waterfall and try to find the house of Undyne. Turns out, Papyrus is there to have his weekly cooking session. He uses the opportunity to get you two to meet and hopefully become friends. Undyne invites you in, and before we can react, Papyrus makes an excuse and leaves, so leaving you with just Undyne. Undyne isn't that excited about this, and I'm pretty sure is ready to beat the shit out of you, until Papyrus challenges her to become friends with you. She accepts and asks for you to sit down. You two start to bond, and she wonders what drink you'd like. You answer and try to get up to get it, but she throws a spear at the table, destroying it, and has you use the spear to point out which drink you'd like. After you make your choice, she prepares it for you, then decides that someone has to take over Papyrus's lesson, and who better than the human? Today's lesson? Spaghetti! She lays out the ingredients, and after some human delicacy, Undyne decides to brute force the preparation and ends up lighting her own house on fire. In her greatest moment of defeat, she blames you for this, and that you were only there to rub your victory in her face, and that the only way to finish this is to fight it out. She attacks, telling you to come on and fight, but you decide to throw a fake punch not intended to harm her. She understands and now knows we don't want to hurt anyone. She apologizes and lets us out of the burning house. She's about to head over to the Skeleton Brothers' place when she asks you to deliver a letter for her to Alphys. You accept and head off to Hotland. You reach Alphys' lab and discover that she locked herself away, so you slide the letter under the door. She picks it up, reads it, and says yes. She will go on a date with you. You arrive at the garbage dump and try to date, but she lets out how she really feels. Right before she can say, Undyne appears and asks if you see an Alphys. You tell her that she's around here somewhere, and Undyne goes looking. Turns out, Alphys likes Undyne and wishes that she could be with her, but doesn't know how to talk. So you two decide to roleplay. You as Undyne, and Alphys as, well, Alphys. Things get a little overboard, and Alphys shouts that she wishes she could do things with Undyne. Undyne overhears and steps in, letting Alphys know that she feels the same way, but to not worry so much. Undyne then gets Papyrus to punish her by making her run laps, and after a quick talk with Undyne, she leaves. You walk out of the garbage piles and get a call from Papyrus to check up on Alphys in her lab. We head over to Hotlands, where inside, we find a note in front of an elevator from her saying she is sorry for all that she has done, and that to learn the actual truth, you have to go into the elevator with her. You enter, push the button, and the elevator malfunctions, trapping you down there in the true lab. You get up on your feet and walk out of the elevator to a dusty and abandoned looking facility with panels on the wall you can read. They detail the works of Alphys during her lifetime as the royal scientist. It's your job to find and turn the power back on, so you can escape through the elevator. While searching, you come across these creatures that have pieces of every monster you have encountered combined together. They became these amalgamations that don't know what to do. You help them remember who they are and why they are here. Some even became friendly and will do nothing. You also find VHS tapes that were recorded by a family. You hear Toriel and Asgore's voices, as well as these two other voices, who happen to be their kids. You start to piece together what has happened from reading more of the logs found underground. King Asgore ordered the monsters of the underground to give the bodies of the ones who have died to Alphys so that they can make artificial souls, so Asgore may cross the barrier without waiting for any humans to fall down. The plan is unsuccessful, and with the extraction of the monsters' souls and ejecting them into other monsters, they created amalgamations. Alphys couldn't deal with telling the families of the monsters they experimented on what happened, so she told them that they were all happy and well in the lab. She then locked them away down there and tried to hide from the mistakes she's made. But once you turn on the power, she knows that she must tell the families what happened to their relatives. She lets you go through the elevator. You walk into the elevator, but before you can make your way up, you hear a voice, similar to the one that was on the VHS tape, saying that you two will meet very soon. The screen fades to white and you are taken to Asgore's castle, where all exits have been sealed off by vines and leaves. The only thing left to do is to talk with Asgore. You go through the same route with Asgore, but right as he's about to destroy your mercy option, Toriel pushes the king aside and tends to you, saying how she cannot deal with having a human go on and face Asgore alone. Soon after, everyone else shows up. Undyne, Alphys, Sans, and Papyrus. They were all invited here by Papyrus after he was told to do so by a small yellow flower. Flowey then appears and captures your friends, as well as trapping you in a box to die. As his pellets near you, your friends start blocking his attacks with their own unique abilities. They all start giving you encouragement to beat Flowey, and soon, every monster you met throughout the game arrives. You start to think you have defeated Flowey until he traps every single monster's soul, and combined with the human souls, becomes his true self, Asriel Dreamer, son of Toriel and Asgore. With his new powers, he throws stars at you as well as a giant laser that can kill you in seconds. But if you do happen to die, don't worry! You refuse and refuse to die. With your determination, you can wish for food to heal yourself, or wish that his attacks did less damage. After not harming Asriel, he decides to trap you in a place. You struggle to move or even attack, so you call out. You call out to the souls of Sans, Papyrus, Undyne, Alphys, Asgore, and Toriel, in hopes to save them. And it turns out to be successful. They regain their consciousness and start to support you. However, there is one person left to save. You call out to Asriel in order to make him stop, but he won't. Instead, he hurts you over and over until he gives up. You then learn that the cutscene at the beginning of the game was not your story, but the story of the first human to fall down, and to be discovered by Azrael. You see both the human and Azrael. After one final call to him, he talks with you and agrees to set the souls of the monsters free. He does so, and only has a while until he transforms back into a flower. He tells you to forget about him, and that he doesn't deserve to be forgiven for everything he did to you, but you decide to comfort him. He then says bye, and to take care of mom and dad for him. You wake up. No one happens to remember what happened, but the barrier is now broken. You walk through with the monsters to the sun rising on the land. They each have a moment of excitement, and you decide to become the ambassador for the relations between humans and monsters. You decided to stay with Toriel after all. A cutscene then plays, where are these characters now? With each one having their own role in the world, you see Azrael one last time introducing the names of the supporters of the game. And a little game occurs where you dodge the names of the supporters while they attack, and every name you hit gets highlighted at the end. The final cutscene shows Toriel bringing a plate of pie to the room as you sleep. The game then presents the words, "The end." And if you wait long enough, a dog appears. Wait even longer, the dog lays down and naps.